Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Marinak, and I'm with my friend Tim Gandee. He is with Packaging Recruiters Pro, and he is my go-to guy when it comes to LinkedIn. LinkedIn has really sort of evolved over the last, at least in my opinion, over the last 6 months or a year, relevance when it comes to B2B, really trying to be able to kind of connect with decision makers beyond your traditional cold calls and emails and whatever. So anyhow, when this kind of started, Tim had thrown out to me some advice, and I just decided, you know what? I'm going to bring Tim on this and let him share this advice because it really did help us. It's not just, and again, I know a lot of people, I don't want people to get caught up here in thinking that this is a refresher on LinkedIn necessarily. This is Tim's twist on using LinkedIn more effectively and some of the tools that he uses. And I'll share some of that as we go along. Tim, is that a good way to introduce you?
It sounds delightful to me.
All right, brother. So basically I just put out some info here on, let's just get some of the blocking and tackling out of the way when it comes to, because this is geared towards really anybody. I know you and I are in the packaging space, but really, let's talk about the blocking and tackling of the LinkedIn profile, some of that basic stuff that you are seeing. And that's really kind of where this started was you see this on the front lines every day in that recruiting space of those looking to get into or hire packaging professionals. So let's kind of talk about it from your perspective on LinkedIn and what you see as a opportunity and some things people may be missing.
Sure. A lot of the sales pitch for LinkedIn is to utilize InMails, to utilize different programs as far as being able to easily connect with people that are prospects in your network, but comes with the cost.
Right.
So at the end of the day, a lot of that looks very spammy. It looks like, you've paid to play, which is fine.
Right.
So some people utilize that for sure. But what LinkedIn has to offer in their network in general are free resources that are just part of being on the team, if you will. So things like the about section, it's surprising how many people don't fill that out in there. And they have to realize that companies and decision makers are swimming in this LinkedIn pond every single day, every single industry, every single segment. So when we uncovered a couple of these techniques through the recruiting industry, the epiphany came after the conversations with you about the reality is that this angle of approach can be applied to any sort of business development activity, especially in the sales capacity of the packaging world, because all of our fish are in that pond. I can tell you just from going through it on a day-to-day basis.
So let's stay with that because I'm going to pull up what you had mentioned to me on this particular about section when it comes to, somebody's profile on LinkedIn. And I'm going to try to find this here really fast. But one of the things, tell us more about what you mean by that from a storyteller standpoint. Use the about section, kind of do something along the lines of, what is it that you're claiming that a lot of people are missing out on, if you will, on the about section?
Well, the thought process is on LinkedIn was that it was only for the purposes of hiring and things of that nature. So many times the profiles of individuals are left vacant because they're not actively looking or they're not applying to any particular jobs. And if they do fill out that about section, it tends to be more aimed towards the angle of getting an opportunity. So they talk about their successes in their career and whatnot. The reality is that about section is utilized for keyword searching and is indexed throughout LinkedIn. So, a lot of companies are looking to possibly increase their presence on the interwebs, if you will, by optimizing their website and wait for those active searches and things of that nature. This is basically an optimization of a person's profile and keeping it up to date and keeping that information in there that's applicable to your industry in general. Because not only are recruiters looking for the keywords when they're searching for candidates for particular roles, but companies are constantly going, oh gosh, who does sealable
Yeah,
pouches in
right, right,
sales?
right.
So making sure and also a lot of the applicant tracking softwares or CRMs for the sales department, a lot of those are using search keywords and things of that nature. And if you don't have your product line and you don't have your customer base, those words salt and peppered throughout there, you're not going to be seen for those companies that are looking for you.
All right. So recap that, dumb that down for me. Remember, I went to a state university. So when I'm looking for to kind of, I want you to speak from that standpoint, Tim. If I'm out there looking to get somebody's hook, you mentioned about storytelling on the about section. You mentioned about utilizing this. Take us through what you shared with me on this doc. If you can see this on the screen, because you basically just sort of like really dial this in. And I don't know if you can see this. I'll see if I can maximize this even further.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can. Does that help you at all?
Yeah, it definitely does. But then again, I am going blind. But
so really, what you're saying here, because this is, I'm trying in this example, I'm trying to let somebody know that I am specialized or I have some knowledge when it comes to custom printed pouches or printing in general, barrier film, whatever. Is this what you're saying is an effective approach like this, or should I add more and overwhelm people with because I've seen that too, Tim.
right.
Somebody, they have a whole dissertation out there. It's like, good gravy, dude. Where are we going with that? Is this kind of the amount that you would want to be able to, in the about section, or take us through what you've seen?
It can really go either way. The first thing, I guess, to address that point is when somebody, so let's say you reach out to somebody through a connection request. The impulses of that person is to take a look at your profile.
Right.
It's, once you're in that, I watch my parents in Facebook. Once they get in that app, they just go through those wormholes.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
So when somebody looks at your profile, that about section is right underneath your name, making sure some of your industry's information is in your title as well. But I guess the point is when you reach out to somebody and then they end up taking a peek at your profile, those first few pieces, those first few lines are what they are going to see. So if you're actively looking for a job, you want to make sure those first few bits are short and concise and get right to the point so they know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then the same would apply for the sales capacity. If you want to work on the business development end, make sure that that potential customer knows that you sell BOPP bags to the agricultural industry, and now there's some familiarity, there's some credibility that comes along with that look. And so now you look a little bit less salesy at the end of the day. Then the second part of your question is this, since it is keyword search optimized,
right?
After those first few pieces that are in play that somebody sees on the front end, adding as much as you want after that, after the page break, if you will, is good for the aspect of having your keywords optimized there. But that, just keep in mind, that first top third is what they're going to see, if that.
So all right, so let me, two parts of this. Number one, does somebody change if I'm, for example, if I'm going after and looking for a job in this this laminated packaging space, and then next week I'm I'm pivoting, still a sales job, but so do people update their about page just anticipating kind of what you're saying? If I'm going to a paper company, even though and they're changing their about section to make sure that if they are looked on that somebody looks it up, that they're going to see the most relevant to that job search. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of the profile. It could be updated on a regular basis. And as a matter of fact, when we were putting this piece together for this
Yeah.
podcast here, I had a really difficult time finding anybody that had really any information other than your vague generalities and overall 30,000 foot views. So I actually put this together,
Yeah.
put it into my profile,
Yeah.
screenshot it, and then switch my profile back. So yeah, you could change it every morning if you really wish to.
Well, and that's why I really wanted to do this, because I see a lot of people in this space, Tim. From a packaging standpoint, I'm sure other industries, but there's a lot of people that just don't. I was a late adopter to the LinkedIn part of this as well. I often saw people on LinkedIn, and it was more of a commercial, like you said, and people are, look at me, I got a new job at Monsanto, and
Mhm.
that's great. But what you're saying here is there is a bona fide process, and there is a way to use this. Here's the other thing too, and you're the one that taught me this, is there's nothing else out there in the B2B space like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
There is nothing else out there that literally, this isn't a TikTok, this isn't a popularity contest, this isn't something to try to get views necessarily but from a work standpoint. And that's the thing that I wanted to do this, because a lot of people are very late to this game and aren't using LinkedIn 1/100th of what's possible. And there's just the other thing you said too, and I want to follow up on this. I never thought, and this show the keyword part of this.
Mhm.
So really and truly, there is and I never thought of this because it's LinkedIn, and I didn't quite follow the keywords. So if I'm in the stand-up pouch business or laminated film business or packaging business, those keywords are also being searched on LinkedIn. That's new. I mean, it makes sense. I just never
Mhm.
thought of it that way. So people can actually use and thread particular keywords when it comes to their about section and other sections on LinkedIn, right?
Right. So that you get your product specialty in place there,
Yeah.
so that in the off chance somebody is searching for that specifically. Again, this isn't an outreach piece. It's more of that passive. It's your billboard. It's your
Yep.
sign.
Yep.
So keeping it brief and keeping it real succinct to those industry segments and those product lines. And multiple different variations of the spelling of some of those product lines. Some people have BOPP, SAC,
Yep.
SAC. Some people
Yep.
do SACK. But the whole point is making sure that's it's just so clear and exactly what that prospect is doing. That's where the matching starts to happen.
I see. I that's the thing that I've seen since you and I started working together. That's the thing I have seen is, honest to goodness, I mean, I just never really gave it the time of day until you were like, hey, you got to be playing in this particular world, and here's the way to do it. And for anybody interested, I'll certainly it's on the screen, Tim's contact information. But the thing that I find fascinating is, from a sales perspective, Tim,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of people that are utilizing LinkedIn the way they
No.
could be. And that to me is, all of us as salespeople, I don't care whether it's direct sales, indirect sale, inside, whatever, we're all looking for that edge. We're all looking for some way to stand out, whether that's to the customer, whether it's to a distributor, whatever it is. And the fact that LinkedIn is really fertile land right now, because there's people that use it socially from like I said, I got a new job, and it's like, big deal. But if you use it here as that story, and this is what I do, and this is where I've been, and this is the experience that I have, and using the knowledge and the information that this incredible platform is built around, you can really get one leg up, or even more on the competition.
And think about too the way that the information is sourced, as opposed to a Zoom info directory or a Salesforce directory. The way it's comprised is not other people grabbing the information; it's the information providers putting that information out there for you. So you do have much more up to date information, and you're not relying on on the work of a third party to really harvest that for you.
Can you stay with that a little bit? Because I'm trying to. So the Zoom infos of the world that are constantly trying to source and obviously, but this is where LinkedIn. You're saying that LinkedIn, because it's all under one roof, if you will, because it's all on this platform, that most likely, in your opinion, the information is more up to date than what other outside of this platform could do. Did I hear you right?
Yeah. For those that are active on it, and
Right.
quite frankly, one of the rebuttals I've heard in talking with some of our clients that we recruit for is that I tell them exactly how we go about it. I'm not shy and I'm nothing to hide. And they go, well, not everybody's on LinkedIn. Well, that is absolutely true. But people that are active and have something that's going on that they really need that resource, you're dealing with the active person. You're not. So that addresses that. But what was the first part of your question? I got sidetracked. Sorry.
Well, we were talking about Zoom info and the relevance in real time of a LinkedIn over a Zoom info or Data USA or whatever else is out there.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that information is real time. It's coming from the source as opposed to a third party. So even though everybody doesn't have everything filled out specifically, usually, and we'll get into that later as we talk about searching for your potential prospects, you're pretty well sure that the company is going to put in accurate information that serves for that beginning of your pipeline search.
Well, and that's a good segue. Let's talk about the real meat of this that I wanted people to understand. You enlightened me on a few things that I never even, again, Sales Navigator is an adder. And I was always skeptical. Again, LinkedIn is one machine. You add another machine on Sales Navigator and you're like, hey, this is how you put that whole thing on steroids, is you automate your outreaches. And there are programs and platforms, and I'm going to bring up one that you recommended, this for our audience, and I think it's really important for them to understand. Part of the battle that I had, it's a lot of work. I mean, to really and truly, it could be hours of chasing, and following up, and is anybody active on LinkedIn, or are they responding to my requests? And there's a direct outreach, and all these other kind of things. Now, and you and I shared about this before, the packaging space is just an odd bunch. Not a knock, they're just an odd bunch. They will connect, but they won't engage, or they'll engage 2 weeks later, or it's just this weird sort of. And you were like, yeah, that's why. And I was like, geez, I mean, I could spend all day trying to connect with somebody, but if they're not on LinkedIn, this obviously doesn't go to their email address. You have to kind of stay in that LinkedIn world. This is where you kind of said, hey, there's a program out there called Dripify. And I'm going to bring this up and tell us what Dripify does, because to me, this is when the light bulbs went off and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I had no idea that there was something like this that you can take and automate kind of the outreaches. And again, a lot of A/B kind of, if they answer, they get this information. If they don't answer, they get this. Take us through what you saw as Dripify, what it did in your world, and then I'll share what it did for us.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as a salesperson in any capacity, it's that ABC or not what ABP actually. Always be prospecting. You're just constantly digging in the ground. And one of the biggest failures that I've seen just in sales in general is sales comes with a significant amount of rejection, a significant amount of not getting anywhere, and with that, desperation tends to come into play. So you sit too long on a quote for somebody who's not a buyer. You sit too long, doing things that really are not coming to a buyer. And then you don't want to go back to the rejection. You don't want to go back to the no's. And your boss, your manager's telling you, well, just make some more calls, man. Just make some more calls. Come on. Oh, Lord.
I know.
And so it could chew up some really talented people.
Yep.
So with today's technology, Dripify in particular, social media in of itself is a narcissism platform. It's all
Yep.
about me, 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 me,
Yep.
and that's fine. And that this plays into it. So with Dripify, if I take a step back to LinkedIn, a lot of recruiters and a lot of salespeople I know have relied upon the in-mail process.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but if I see an in-mail, it pretty much to me reminds me of my spam box.
Yep. Yep. Me
So
too.
I'm probably not getting the again, they know you're pay for play at that point.
Yep.
So once you understand your target audience, which we'll get into a little bit here and how to find them, once you understand that and you put your lead list of people that you want to be connected with on a regular basis, you put it into Dripify and it taps into the me aspect of the social media world where the connection request will go out. And if the candidate or if the person you're trying to reach doesn't accept the connection request, you have a decision tree of events that can happen.
Right.
So the next step would be to take and look at their profile.
Right.
2 days later, maybe view a post of theirs.
Yep.
3 days later, maybe even follow their page, something along those lines.
Yep.
And when somebody says to me, well, not everybody checks their LinkedIn email, that's true. However, when they sign up for LinkedIn, they get a notification email that comes to them.
Yep.
And when they, each time that you like somebody's post or follow their webpage or view their profile, they get a notification in LinkedIn that in turn goes to their email. So after a week or two of seeing, why is Tim Gandee keep looking at my damn profile? What is going on here?
Right.
And it causes them to go into it. And now they're in TikTok world. Now you're on the app and now they see the messages. It doesn't, in this way, it doesn't show up as an automated connection request.
Yep.
And quite frankly, what you can do then is once you have that list and once you have that the automation aspect into play, then you just feed Dripify. And you feed it. And we'll see as we go through here, you start working on the people that are active, the people that do have a particular issue. Right. And the conversations from that they look at your profile, you have your nice picture up there, you've optimized your about section. And, for God, please put in something in your banner as well. But after they see that email that comes into them because you've been poking them the entire time, and then they go to your profile page, they now know what you do. You now have somebody's attention, and the conversations do start to flow. And it's that's why they call it Dripify. Yep. It drips every day long.
I hope you like this content. If you want more of it, I put together a specialized packaging alliance, a group of packaging professionals that are in different facets of this industry. We have webinars, we have meetings. The idea is to share information about this great industry of packaging, whether that be from the sales side of things to the marketing, even to the end users. My point with this is I'd love to have you join us, the Specialized Packaging Alliance. Check out the link below to learn more. Thanks. This is where the light bulbs went off for me, Tim, when you so for everybody's benefit, one of the issues, I'll speak from my perspective, and I mentioned this before, is that it takes a lot of work. It's one thing to spend an hour and you reach out to people and you hope that they can connect, and maybe you catch them while they're on the platform or whatever. But what Dripify does, now, it stays within the parameters of LinkedIn. I think there's only 100 or 200 outreaches you can do per week or free
account. So your basic account is you get 100 per week.
Yep.
But if you do have Sales Navigator, which I would highly recommend for prospecting, this is not a paid ad endorsement. That gives you up to 200 connection requests a week. So, But yeah.
Yeah. And so, but what it does, which is fascinating to me is, and this is where the creativity or not just your profile, but the gumption and the grit it takes to get a message out to these particular people. And if you're you're trying to connect with a Tim Gandee, and Tim is, he's C-suite at Monsanto somewhere, but he's the you get in the door with him, and if you can connect with him, that may open up. And what it does is this Dripify is preloaded with information, and like you were saying, this decision tree, that information doesn't just have to be a connect request. It can be an article that you wrote. It can be some sort of a case study that really dials in the Tim Gandee at Monsanto and goes, who is this guy? Hold on 1 second. He worked with our biggest competitor. Whoa, 1 second. And this is where this lit this fuse for us, because think about this, people. I don't care whether you have a paid or an unpaid version, 200 or 100 outreaches per day.
Get that on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Try doing that on the phone. I mean, you're going to be just total toast. So you want to talk about at the end of the week, looking at this going like, holy mackerel, I've covered some ground. And then next week you put a new list in there, and next week you put another list in there. And this kind of begins to snowball. That's where this is just, man, this is gold. This is total gold.
Right. And you know what? Quite frankly, a sales rep that wants to implement this into their packaging a business development routine, they don't have to stop what they're doing.
No.
They can set up that Dripify first thing in the morning. I know right now market share is shrinking. So the pieces of the pie in this situation are starting to get a little lower. You do have to make some more calls. This can allow you to do more calls, but at the end of the day, all of us have the same amount of hours that we can contact people within. Right. This allows you start feeding this bad boy during your off hours, and instead of watching Good Morning America or whatever, start off your day. And it's amazing how many appointments you could start setting, even though you go ahead, still do your marketing emails, still do your content, and still do your phone calls. But you can put this on and it can run in the background.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I was so jazzed about too, is as salespeople, like you said, we are limited with how much time we have. And to be able to cover ground, because it's a process to be relevant on LinkedIn. If that's not, that to me, it's a process. Now, those of us who are consistently and drop, you've been so active on LinkedIn and consistently dropping, you've got relevance. But for those people who are just now waking up to how powerful this tool can be, this Dripify, on top of updating your profile, on top of using it for outreach and using it to suddenly be relevant, and this, to me, I've never seen anything like this. I didn't even know this existed. And that's why I'm so adamant to teach or train or educate people that this is how you really can jump on LinkedIn. And by the way, it's not expensive.
Yeah, good point.
It's not expensive at all. This isn't some heavy lift. That's the beauty of some of these adders into the LinkedIn's and some of this. It's not expensive, and you can.
Yeah, it's 100. It's about 100 a month, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, if that, and you can kind of just continually use it as any way you want. You can have this week's going out for purely outreach. You can have next week's, if you will, as a as a sales sort of even a salesy sort of case study that you're sending out, whatever it may be. But they're really, for the longest time on LinkedIn, they never had anything like this. That's why it's kind of like even video on LinkedIn. I know I'm going off script, so to speak, Tim, but just within the last couple of months, I'm video. It's almost like LinkedIn kind of said, hey, wait a minute, you know what? We can do a video, almost like a TikTok, and we can now prioritize people if they are using video properly within the confines of. There's just these things that's this came after you taught us about Dripify, and now suddenly it's almost like I don't really in my world, in packaging and specialized packaging and outreach and all that, I mean, other than some miscellaneous on the YouTubes and emails and things like that, LinkedIn is really our bandbox. It almost has to be. It doesn't make any sense to go back to those, those old emails and Outlook and even newsletters, if they're not tied to something like Dripify, goes unnoticed.
Well, and two, with the LinkedIn, a lot of sales reps have so much collateral material, just like you're talking about, articles and this and that.
Yep.
As you're building up your connections, that's your spot to start posting that content, because once you have that connection, somebody connects with you, they are now following your page, so you show up on your feed, on their feed, if you do put that up there. And so giving away those freebies, giving those technical studies and analysis that are really important for a food packager, packer out there, that's where you start. Now you're no longer needing the Dripify, you're building your portfolio of potential clients on Dripify, but now all that collateral material, you go out there and that's your soft touch. That's your soft, as opposed to just calling somebody every month going, do you need a bag now?
Exactly.
Right. So that is the way to get out there. And again, more credibility in the eyes of your potential client. And sometimes people might think that, well, I'm just putting, like the person that puts out on Facebook, they post 16 times a day. Right. Keep in mind that when you're compartmentalizing this idea of LinkedIn, it's purely a professional business, B2B oriented one. So those people that are on there for a reason. So putting that information out there, the algorithm, who knows when it shows up on somebody's page. I have a Halloween post that somebody just liked, and it's no longer Halloween.
It's so weird.
Yeah, but that's again, it's better than the touch of just calling somebody again, going, do you need a bag? Do you need a bag?
Yeah, you know what? And the other thing too, for our listeners on this, whether they're seeing it live or when it's cataloged, but what I'm getting at too is you mentioned something, and I think a lot of people need a reminder. This information that you're putting out there, if you can do it in a way that's non-salesy, it's not like, look at me, it's we, and we're talking from a we standpoint, meaning, giving away free information that is relevant to your particular customer. And this isn't about giving away the secret sauce or giving away the keys of the kingdom. This is about, if you're in this space, consider this, Mr. Whoever you are. And here's something I saw over the years working with other, companies like Monsanto, ironically. They have found, whatever that is, but it's not a, and even ending that with a call me. This is not about call me. They can call you, they can find you. But that to me is where the untapped market is from a packaging standpoint on LinkedIn. Is giving away information that just builds credibility, builds relevance, but also proves that I know what the hell I'm talking about. And everybody has that little niche out there. I don't care what world they're in, packaging or non-packaging. If you want, look, let's face it, we're all trying to let people know we know what we're doing. I'm in whether it's looking for a job, whether it's whatever. And if you can do this, man, LinkedIn just circumvents the entire old school, newsletter, blind email nonsense. And that's where I just think so many people miss out on this opportunity here.
Well, you and I were talking about it earlier. It's its own platform. It is a YouTube, it's a Facebook, it's an Instagram, it's a TikTok, but all bent towards the professional. And it's amazing. If you're in the packaging industry, you're running across questions, problems constantly that are industry related. Send yourself a text or an email reminding yourself, oh, there was somebody mentioned about this new biopolymer. Right. And just putting that out there to your industry segment, it's amazing what people really find interesting and grab their attention.
Yeah, and again, it's just it does bring us back to that platform, and it does, meaning the LinkedIn platform, and it does keep us in there. And there's just it's amazing to me how untapped this is when we're trying to, as professionals, trying to get noticed, trying to get in the door, trying to find the right person. I mean, I can't tell you how many times you and I have talked about, trying to get past, Betty the gatekeeper, and finding out somebody else who's really in charge at a company who really makes the decisions. Well, LinkedIn is that world. And
Exactly.
and I mean, I just and it's just amazing to me. That's why I wanted to share what it is. Now, Tim, if somebody wants to kind of connect, and you've always been very gracious with your time, but I don't want to just, speak for you, but what you were kind enough to tell us about this LinkedIn part, if somebody's in the packaging space and they're looking can they reach out to you and just sort of, is that something that you would, be willing to kind of just even talk about something like this from the packaging side?
Only if they connect through LinkedIn with me.
Well,
Just kidding.
well, and that's actually,
Absolutely.
and
No,
you know what?
absolutely.
I think that's actually legit. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, I think it's really important for people to understand, just because, let me get this out of here, because, everybody has to start somewhere. That's one of the reasons why so many people, my opinion, but so many people are intimidated by LinkedIn and they don't do anything.
Mhm.
And if there's something I'm passionate about, is I'm just trying. I even updated my profile page after you and I initially did our podcast. It is, trying to reignite the passion and purpose of a packaging reseller, because there's so many packaging resellers that are out there that are just, they're catalog people. They're just milk route salesmen, and they wonder why they're not getting into other segments or able to kind of sell at higher margins or get into some new things that they have very little competition. And that's why I just wanted to throw that out there. It can certainly connect on LinkedIn, but
Right. Yeah. But yeah, my email, tim@packagingjob.com. And obviously, LinkedIn and the phone number. But the reality is on this LinkedIn angle is that after you do make that connection, after you do get that nibble on the line of somebody that does have a particular packaging need that their current supplier isn't tending to,
yep,
once you have that nibble, the conversation migrates out of LinkedIn. This is
yeah.
this is the prospecting grounds. This is your pile of dirt to sift through to find the gold nuggets.
Yeah, and that actually is a really good reminder too. Is once you connect with them, pull it out of LinkedIn, get them talking on, on the regular traditional channels. That way you're not stuck in that muck. Did I hear you say that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's
yeah,
it's the conversation starter.
yeah,
It's the targeted approach as opposed to that pray and spray, or spray
yeah,
and pray, I should say,
yeah, yeah.
approach. And yeah, it migrates to that meeting. So those interactions that you have end up leading to those meetings where you're face to face and you have that phone call or the Zoom meeting or what
Yeah,
have
yeah.
you. So it's, so many I've talked to have said, I just never thought of this as a prospecting tool. Never.
Yeah, and that's why I was so adamant about us pinning this down. You're exactly right.
Mhm,
This is a prospecting tool. This is
mhm.
a way to do this, but it's not clubbing somebody to death and beating them down into the ground. This is being relevant. Showing that you understand what you're talking about, or that you're interested in. And then, that's the thing. This is a prospecting tool. And if there's anybody that I've seen over the year, over the shit, just months, that's the thing. That's why this is so cool, is that you can really crush it out there and cover a lot of ground on LinkedIn. And, look, let's face it, we've all kind of followed the YouTube and, even Instagrams, and, there's celebrities out there that whatever. This LinkedIn is untapped, and I just, yes, there's lots of people on there, but nobody's using it like you're using it, and
Mhm.
you're teaching. And that's where it's like, my passion is sharing this information, going, guys, I mean, we got one shot to get in the door to see somebody, or we got one opportunity to kind of use LinkedIn. And then, of course, they're going to graduate themselves out of this, hopefully with a one-on-one conversation or Zoom or face-to-face. But good gravy, it's untapped. Totally.
Yeah, and then you even go back to the aspect of it's more accurate than a database in many aspects.
Yeah.
It's simply it takes away a lot of the administrative aspects of keeping your CRM up to date too,
Yeah.
merging duplicate records and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
That just you could feel really busy throughout the day cleaning virtual files as long as you want, but you're not accomplishing much.
No, and it's just spinning your wheels going nowhere. I totally get it. Well, my friend, is there anything else that you want to share as we wrap up? I just wanted to make sure we covered the ground. We made sure we kind of gave everybody our free commercial on Dripify, because I mean, you know what, whoever, good for us, because they really have changed our world. But I mean, this actually was a great refresher course.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to thank Clark Wilcox of Digital Recruiter that really turned me on to this, and then seeing the applicability that it really shows, and even the experience that you've had through it already has just been a marked amount of activity that's much more effective. I guess we'll have another one here where we'll have to tell them, how do you really find who those prospects are, so that you can make sure that you're feeding Dripify appropriately.
Well, that's actually a really good one too, and 100%. Let's come back and do that as well. And again, folks, if there's anything you want to take from this, is to use LinkedIn effectively for your world. Meaning, this kind of stuff like Tim and I talked about obviously has a packaging bent. Obviously, we're in that world, but you can use this. I don't care, regardless of what industry you're in. The blocking and tackling is the same, and the prospecting and trying to find decision makers is the same. And the more people are able to and the more you are able to, listener, more you are able to play in that bandbox. All that does is benefit you, because LinkedIn's algorithm is seeing this. And wait a minute, somebody just shared something that Tim Gandee put out there, and well, hold on one second, that's where this thing becomes, lighting this thing with gasoline, because it really, really does take off. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, and even so much of it is free, in the fact that I've heard the success stories of people that simply put a nice picture up, put a banner up, put in that about us section, about me section, so that it could be really clear what they did. And passive incoming calls came in. Hey, I understand you sell flexible packaging. We have da 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 da. So there's some free aspects, and again, it doesn't take away from your normal core business that you've been able, however you prospect before, and it's working great. Keep doing that, but you can add this in.
Well, I'll tell you what, just to leave everybody with this, since we started doing the program you put us in touch with, we've gained over 400 followers. 400, Tim. That's like a month or so. I mean, this isn't connections. That was the one thing that really kind of was like, let's get Tim out here to explain this, because it just shows that sharing good information and doing it consistently and not spammy. There's nothing in here that somebody feels like I'm going to go chasing them down. If they want to connect, I always kind of like, hey, here's my email and, how contact us. But this just shows me that there's people looking. There's people in that world. And that's why this is just such an untapped market for those of us that use it properly.
Yeah. And even, 400, how many people have you had conversations outside of the LinkedIn sandbox then?
Exactly.
So now your time is allocated towards something that both parties are going to benefit for. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I've been proselytizing about it the entire time, because our business is developing companies, which involves developing people's careers, and to give a sales rep a little bit of a break so they don't want to go slit their wrists after 72 no's on a week. I would love, we have to share it. Would be
100%.
selfish not to.
Well, that's you know what, and again, like you said earlier, and I'll just recap with this. This sales isn't for the faint of heart. It is when you get pounded and your message isn't getting delivered, or you're not getting to the right person, and you're getting no after no after no. Sometimes you can modify, adjust the approach like this, and find fertile land, and you can just kind of run with it. So. Well, Tim Gandee, I always love talking with you, brother. I'm glad we're friends. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to kind of spread the word. Hi, everyone. It's David Marinak. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to see more, here's another video that you can check out, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.